We are so excited to feature Amanda Brandenburg of OpusLex Partners. Amanda is a longtime experienced recruitment leader who has been very successful both on the recruitment front as well as real estate. She is quite the mogul. I'm so excited to feature Amanda and her story. Welcome to our Recruiter Prep feature, Amanda. We're so honored to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Dandan. It takes one to know one. So happy to be in your company as always.
Awesome. Well, we're so excited to dive into your story. And of course, we're always keen to ask folks, can you just give us a little background of your recruitment journey?
That's a big question. So I guess my journey began in 2007 and, with a very large public agency. I think you could probably call it a grad shop at this point. And I worked for another agency for about 10 years and then started my own agency right at 4 years ago. It'll be 4 years in October, actually. So it's been, a pretty long run at this point, but I have no intentions of quitting or slowing down in the foreseeable future. And I'm just so grateful that I kind of, like most people, fell into this business and just truly love it.
And you've created so much success for yourself through your career and profession. And that's really exciting for us at Recruiter Prep because we're trying to show people that this is not a gig, right? It's a legitimate profession, just like you would invest in a lawyer or a doctor profession. I mean, it is really seriously that niche and that much of a unique skill set. And you mentioned earlier, you fell into recruiting similar to many people who fall into this career. So how did you discover or happen upon recruitment?
During college and immediately after college, my first job was working for a talent and literary agency in Los Angeles. So it's a little ironic that I've always actually worked in an agency environment. The subject matter or the product has certainly changed since I was working in LA and for a TV talent and literary agency. Now I, of course, do legal recruiting, but I think if I look back on it, I've always been really drawn to fast-paced, high-energy, high-stakes environments. I really enjoy all those personalities there, and it's something, with which I really thrive. So after being in LA for a number of years, I thought I wanted a law degree. I thought it would actually help me with what I was doing in Los Angeles. And so decided to take a break and come home to Atlanta and study for the LSAT and apply to law school. So while I was here, I ended up, meeting this guy, of course, like many stories. And, spoiler alert, of course, we've been married for almost 15 years now. But anyway, the point of that is that also too, my mom said, well, maybe you should work at a law firm before you commit to law school. So I did work at a law firm for a year, did not enjoy it. That was while I was applying to law school. And so then I deferred my law school acceptance because I was also dating the guy and not really sure I wanted to go at that point, and was still hoping to move back to Los Angeles and return to agency life there. And then ended up trying one more law firm and really did not like that one. I disliked it even more than I disliked the first one. So about, I'd say 6 months into that, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. It seemed unlikely that my boyfriend at the time was willing to move to California, and that was kind of a problem. So I had a lot of people, always say, you should get into sales. You should get into sales. You've got a personality for sales. And I was like, well, I don't really know what that means. I did not grow up in a household where anyone was in sales. I didn't know if that was pharmaceutical sales. I didn't really know like what that could look like or, where would I even begin with that? So, but I was really young. I mean, I was probably 23, 24 at this point and was so over this law firm where I worked. So, someone had told me that there was a part-time job opening at Ferragamo, luxury shoes and bags. And it happened to be at the mall, which was next door to the law firm where I work. So I go there and I apply for this job and I get this job selling shoes and bags part-time. And I mean, this is like 2005, 2006. So, in that job, I think we made maybe like $7, $8 an hour, but then we got commission, of course, for the shoes and bags that we sold. And I worked 20 hours a week, and, I was 24, and this was 2006 maybe, and 23. And, I made like 45 grand selling shoes 20 hours a week when, I was a young 20 something year old, and I was working part-time. And so when I wasn't doing that, I was also a nanny and I did some other things. So it's just kind of like trying to find my way. So I did that for a year. And again, like, my boyfriend was now like in a real lawyer job, and it's like, maybe you should get a job where you're not gone all the time on the weekends. Fair. So and I had these other ideas still, like other business ideas and stuff. So at this point I was just, oh, and by the way, big part of the story is that I had a ton of credit card debt from living in Los Angeles. I was, on my own there, and you're not making a lot of money in LA as someone who pushes the mail cart in a talent agency or works as an assistant. You're just not, you're there for the experience. So I had at that point probably 5 figures worth of credit card debt, which was really serious for somebody that young. So one day I saw an ad that was looking for someone with sales experience and legal experience. And I thought, like, what are the chances that this wayward path that I've taken here, could qualify me for this job? So that was with Robert Half, and I went in and I interviewed and I got the job, and I thought, well, I'll do this until I can pay down some credit card debt, and then I'll figure out something else. So that was summer of 2007. I think it was June, actually. So whatever that was, I guess I just had another staffing anniversary. And haven't, right before the 2008 recession started, and I haven't looked back since.
That is so fateful that you got into sales and really succeeded at that, and was able to combine your legal experience into recruitment for legal, which is an awesome mix of skill sets that no doubt set you apart and gave you even more ability to succeed. So that's so cool how fate and just your own, more so your own sort of intuition to learn all these new skills played into success in recruitment. So once you broke into recruitment as a career, what did you notice about this? Because obviously you stayed in it and you've continued to excel in it. So what kind of told you that this is it for me?
Well, I think that I liked it. I didn't actually expect to like it as much as I did. I mean, I loved what I did in LA. I mean, I really loved that. Yeah. And I love that career path. And I thought it was so exciting. And it took me a long time before I made the connection that it was actually truly the same job, just in a different format, a different, profession rather, in terms of the candidates or the product there. But, I really have always felt that there was something sort of, there's always something that's never finished to this business, right? Like you never like go home at the end of the day and you're like, oh, I'm done now, and we'll see what, tomorrow brings. Like that, you're never going to have that. And if you need that sort of like satisfaction at the end of the day, like crossing off your to-do list, like this isn't the business for you. So I love that. And that I've always got some sort of little itch, like some sort of little string that I'm trying to, navigate and pull, and the puzzle piece, and I'm trying to figure out, where does this go? Where does this go? I've got to do this. And so for me, I discovered that I really loved it. The days like flew by. I loved the energy, and I also loved how competitive it was, and not even necessarily, I do enjoy being competitive with other people, but also just myself, and like, what can I do to, be at the top of the leaderboard, or whatever it is, that's ticking, or President's Club, or how much money can I make this year, or how many placements can I make, or how many lives can I change, if you want to think about it from a service perspective too. So, I mean, I've just found it to be extraordinary, fulfilling and exciting and rewarding. It's also an incredibly collaborative business if you're somebody who likes to work with a team. And I have, for better or worse, historically, all of my colleagues have always been my closest friends. So I just think staffing people are great people.
What's it called? Birds of a feather, right?
Yeah,
Similar, motivated people that support each
absolutely.
other, all are here for success. That's awesome. So when you first started recruiting, what did you notice about the career in terms of like how different it was? Or you mentioned it was similar to your experience in LA, but at the same time, like what was just adapting to the lifestyle of a recruiter like? How was that transition for you?
It was just at that time I ran a contract desk exclusively. So it was very, um, I think contract is so service oriented, and that's really kind of how you have to approach it, is that your client is calling on you in an
Mhm.
emergency, in a pinch with, they've got their boss breathing down their neck. They really need something. And so for me, I mean, just kind of coming, coming through for someone was a high that like I couldn't shake. I just loved that. And that was sort of the competition that I always felt. In terms of, I guess the day to day of it, like making the calls and driving around to the meetings. And, I'm sure a lot of this stuff is probably antiquated at this point for a lot of people, but I didn't have a problem with that. I mean, I loved Robert Half at the time. They had this amazing database and planner, and I like love that stuff. And I didn't care if they counted my calls, and I didn't care if I had a metric to follow every week, and if I was on the, if they counted the scoreboard or not. I really, frankly, enjoyed all that, and I think learned so much from that structure and from those metrics. So I would say
Mhm.
to anyone starting out, whether your company requires that or not, hold yourself accountable to some standards, because it really does get you in a great rhythm. And I think like activity is the core of all billing, right? Like billing doesn't just kind of come
Yeah,
together, especially when you're new. Like if you want to increase your billing, you've got to look at your activity. So for me, like
right.
having that structure and, forcing that volume and just that repetitive practice over and over again was really a great thing.
Mhm. And once you got the hang of it, and obviously started progressing in this career, both on the temp side and the perm side, eventually, what would you say was like the range of financial reward that you started witnessing once you really got into this career?
Well, I always tell people the story because maybe it resonates with other people, but I know when I interviewed initially there, they said, you've got to be money motivated. And I personally think it's hard to be money motivated if you never had any money, if you didn't come from, you're sort of like, okay, I don't like, what does that mean? Um, for me, I think once I actually started to have money, then I was a lot more money motivated, because like, okay, I get this now. And, you start to build your lifestyle around income, and you have children and houses and all these other things. And you're like, all right, now I'm definitely money motivated. But um, beforehand, I was kind of like, all right, we'll see. And so I think that's so valuable because, you know, if we interview people and just say, are you money motivated? Would you describe yourself as, I think we're probably missing out on so many valuable people who are probably really highly productive and very good. For me, I didn't really understand that I was money motivated, but I was very competitive. And I also just wanted to win. So that was all it was. If somebody placed a temp order with me and they gave it to five other people, with other agencies, like I wasn't leaving until I won. And so I didn't even understand for probably the first 2 years, like how I got paid at Robert Half. They just sent me money. And I was like, okay, I don't even understand your comp plan, but cool. But I mean, that first year, placing temporary legal secretaries, paralegals, projects, maternity leaves, temp to perm, whatever, receptionist, whatever it was. I mean, I made six figures that first year. And that was 2007. And I was, I guess, 25, 26 years old. And for somebody who was that age at that time and five figures worth of credit card debt, that was a really good thing. So I was just frankly elated to be chipping away at my credit card debt. I know the next year I got married. And it was just such a relief. But, I mean, I think even if I hadn't done as well financially, I would have kept at it because I enjoyed it so much. But I mean, I made six figures from the get-go. And that was,
Mhm.
I don't know how many years ago now.
very impressive, because at that time, 2007, even on a really decent comp plan, and you were probably on a good one, but not at a really small company where they could really give away a lot, right? Like you were at a very big company where commission cuts probably aren't as high as like, smaller firms that could afford to give more. So the fact that you achieved six figures in your first year in 2007, where salaries were much lower, like we didn't even inflation adjust it, that's very impressive. And obviously six figures is a range. So as you got more experience, what would you say the range of reward would be? And some people have been putting up crazy numbers these recent years, and you've been in the business a lot longer. What would you say you've seen throughout the years from a yearly perspective as it hit your paycheck at the end of the year?
Yeah, well, just to provide a little bit more perspective on the 2007 part too, I think my salary then was like 40, 45 maybe. That was my base. And so, but the other, like, I think important takeaway from that story and that time period is that I also made six figures in 2008, which, was after for all of you kids out there, you can Google this, Wikipedia, this is after the Lehman Brothers collapse. And I did the same thing in 2009, which we were in a really dark place. So, and that was all running a contract desk. So that wasn't doing any perm stuff. And in 2009, I did end up leaving that company and went to start an office for another organization. So that was a huge risk in, the midst of a historic recession. But, I think obviously, my situation as an agency owner now is a bit different, but, even when I work for other people, my income, for years probably ranged between, 250 and, 550 over the, being an employee. So, and most of that was again, running a contract desk. That wasn't even doing, big perm deals, which is more of what we do now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's amazing to consistently earn that kind of money, no matter where you were at, because it sounds like you had to rebuild your desk, that when you switched firms,
start a whole new office.
That's amazing achievement. And just, wow, $500,000 a year. These are the reasons why I think recruitment, I just can't believe nobody knows about stories like yours, where it really set you up in a very, very amazing way to change your life and reach such high levels of prosperity through your own labor. So it's very inspiring to hear of your achievements. And I hope that inspires people who are thinking about their future in recruiting, because it's possible. People like yourself are achieving that every single day, even if you work for someone else. Obviously, now that you work for your own firm. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing, 250 plus up to 500,000 plus. That's just like amazing. And for you, like, obviously you're very charismatic, you speak really well. Even for someone like yourself, what would you say are the hardest things about the business in general? What do you think was the most difficult part for you?
Well, I guess if we're talking about like key traits, I think people have to be emotionally intelligent. You have to really listen to people and think about people's motivations or their anticipated objections, and have some empathy and put yourself in their shoes and sort of how they would navigate their job search or whatever it is that you're proposing to them. And I also think the hardest thing probably for any agency recruiter, myself included, is just the emotional roller coaster of this business. I mean, there are, it's probably a well-known saying, but there are high highs and low lows. And, even, in the early days of owning, I just motioned over to the mailbox there. You can't see that, but I looked out the window and, the early days of owning this business, I remember like rushing out to the mailbox, like hoping there was a check in there because, like I had to make payroll basically. And so, and there have been other years where it's like, we got it, we're good here. So, I think having that emotional fortitude and mental fortitude to know that like whatever happened today is done and tomorrow is a new day, and being willing to, get back in the saddle, so to speak, and come back to your desk with a fresh outlook and renewed determination. I mean, and especially I was thinking about this, I was thinking about this morning as I was doing my own workout. the more senior we get in our careers, and especially if you, just like you and I, are self-employed at this point and you're the boss, you don't really have anyone else there telling you, hey, you're doing a good job. There's no like monthly check-in or annual review, or I don't have anyone telling me that I went to President's Club this year, right? Or there's no big award ceremony for me anymore. So you have to be your own cheerleader and constantly give yourself that encouragement and that validation, whether you have it from an external source or not. It's still up to you to like come in with your head held high and your A game on and get it done.
Absolutely. I relate with that so much because it's a marathon every day. And, being in the game for as long as we have, recruitment is still recruitment. Same things could go wrong. And being on your A game is just critical to doing deals still, right? It doesn't matter if you've been doing it for 20 years or 30 years, like every deal is a deal and you still have to do it right. And, to keep that perspective is really important to always be, thinking ahead.
Yeah. And I always tell my recruiters too, and I would tell anyone else this too, like no matter what your bank account looks like right now, I don't care if you've got $5 left in it. When you are talking to someone and you are, making them an offer or whatever it is that you're talking to them about, you have got to act like you do not need the money. And you've got to, in my opinion, completely separate yourself from your own, personal situation, your own, financial situation. Because to me, I think it comes back to, being a good advisor for the long haul and your reputation and your integrity. And people can really feel that. And that's where I think, the industry as a whole can get a bad rap. It gets the used car salesman rap and all that stuff, because I think if you're, if you are approaching each conversation with like, I want this paycheck or whatever it is,
right?
Personally, I think it's the wrong way to go about it. And I really don't think it's how you're going to ultimately be successful for, decades plus in this business. And so you've got to kind of like, and then approach it. And I think so many people don't have the ability to do that or don't do it well.
That's a really good point as it relates to just, I guess, a characteristic, right? The confidence, self-belief, ability to compartmentalize. Obviously, there is a selfish desire, but your service has to supersede that personal desire to get money, because to your point, that's not going to work. That's not what's going to sell the individual. And I have heard recruiters on the phone just being like, this is a great opportunity because of X, Y, and Z. And it's like totally irrelevant to the customer because the customer's just not feeling it at all. And they're like, I know you're trying to sell me, I'm taking it because you want the commission. And once you have that dynamic, it doesn't matter what you say, you're going to lose the deal because they know you're coming at it from a purely selfish standpoint and it's not resonating. What other characteristics or advice do you have for people considering going into this career, whether it's a characteristic they should have or something to watch out for? A lot of people tuning in are looking for just advice to self-evaluate. So what are some tips or observations you've made from people who've made it versus people who haven't on these topics?
Yeah. So I think, I think at the core, people who are really great at this are just natural connectors. Like they're your people, they're your friends, your neighbors, whoever they are, who are like, oh my gosh, I got to introduce you to so-and-so. You're going to love them because they know this, or you should talk to this person. So that is their natural way of just being in the world. And that's why I always share with my company is that that's all we're doing. And once you've been doing this for 10 plus years and you have such a network built up, it really is as simple as that. You literally are just meeting people, introducing people. You're bringing them together. You would like this person. You do what this person does. Let me bring you together and have a conversation. And that's oversimplifying it, but truly that is the core of this whole thing. And so for that reason, for me, it's never dull, it's never boring, and it comes pretty naturally. So I would say that, like, if you're a natural connector, it's a great business for you. If you don't really like people, it's not a good business for you. You have to genuinely like people. And I know that's like such a weird thing to say, but I tend to enjoy talking and meeting people. It's why, Dandan, you can relate to this, why I love being a vacation rental host, because I actually don't do it for the monthly income. It's too hard, frankly, for the return on the investment of the monthly income for that. But I enjoy meeting people and like talking to them and sharing with them. So, for me, like that's really fun. I like the hospitality aspect of that. I think too, especially if you're working in a pretty technical or nuanced industry like legal recruiting is, or IT or medical or whatever, kind of thinking of specific, even creative is very nuanced as well. To be intellectually curious. So I always tell everyone, like, I'm a 5-minute subject matter expert on just about everything, but it's it's like my knowledge is like shallow but wide. So I can talk to just about any lawyer about almost any practice area, in a very superficial phone call. I understand basic, more or less about their practice. I understand it well enough to be able to present their experience in, a way in which they'd want it presented to the appropriate person. So like understanding what they do, being able to represent them, in a powerful way, and then connecting them with the appropriate person who also does that same or works in that same area of practice. So to me, it's like being intellectually curious. So I'm like, oh, I don't know about this area of law. Tell me about that. And just listening to them and actually enjoying hearing about it. Not to say that I enjoy hearing about everything, because when we start talking about patents or, lithium batteries, my eyes glaze over, but I can still talk about it. So I think being intellectually curious, being a connector, liking people, and, finally, I think this is, obvious, but I think you have to have an extraordinary work ethic. Like, this is not an easy business. You have to approach it as such. And, especially with, a lot of these roles, higher level roles, you are a consultant and an advisor to your client and your candidate, and you need to be there for them. And whether it's finding the candidate, under time pressure, or being there for the candidate when they're getting an offer, like, you got to show up. The work ethic is truly critical. It really is. And I think for anyone, even though everyone's not going to be, a solopreneur or an entrepreneur or business owner, you really need an entrepreneurial mindset, in my opinion, rather than an employee mindset to be excellent at this business, even if you're working for somebody else.
I couldn't agree more, because if you look at this job like just a task or a job, it's not enough. Like, you really have to treat it like a business, a small business, and have that kind of small business approach, which I think really aligns well with being a rental host, right? Because it's small business. You're running your own business, and it's the same skill sets, same drive. It's the same operational, you got to be on, you got to be available. You're responsible, you're accountable, but you like it. You just enjoy that, the extra. Well, and some people might look at it. Yeah.
There's a little bit of an adrenaline rush to it, right? On all of it. It's like, yes, I got a new booking, or like, yes, I got a new job order, or we got an offer, or, oh my gosh, this person's going to walk into their new vacation rental and see that we, left a bouquet of flowers and a nice bottle of wine because they're coming to elope this weekend, or, like whatever. Like, you want people to be thrilled and surprised with how, how well you service them. Right. And I think that's true. And I hope it's true in like everything that I endeavor to do, and that my people endeavor to do.
I love it. On a closing note, I'd love for you to just share with our audience, what has recruitment done for you in a way, from a lifestyle perspective, from a profession? What has your investment into this career returned to you?
I mean, honestly, I think it's returned a lifestyle that has been beyond my wildest dreams. I spent let me back up. I'm the only child of a single mother. I lived in a double wide trailer for the first 10 years of my life. My mother put herself through graduate school, and I didn't grow up poor by any means, but certainly not well off or in a very cushy situation. And so, I don't really remember like what I imagined for myself, frankly. Like, as a kid, I don't really know what I thought that looked like, but I think I always knew, in great part to my mom, that I was going to depend on myself. So I was never never like looking for a husband or, anything like that. And I think that's been true in my life, my personal life, and the way I take care of my family. So I mean, for me, the ability to take care of my family, in such a way that they're not worried, that they have choice, and we have choice in where we live and what we do and where they go to school, and all of these things is incredibly rewarding. And they're living a lifestyle that I certainly didn't have for myself, and that I never imagined for them, frankly. And then, I mean, my little tiny, Amanda Brandenburg business here, did 2.5 million last year in our third year. And it's a, it's a small number, right, compared to the big boys out there. But for us, it was, for me, it was absolutely mind blowing to be 3 years in and have, a very small team, and, kind of humble beginnings, and do that. So it's provided a lot of security. I think it provides my kids with a ton of opportunity. And for me, I mean, I just have a lot of pride in what I do. I think, I've been doing this a long time at this point, and I feel like I'm a respected member in the community and the legal community, and, have made some great friends and business connections as a result of it. So I have no regrets about this choice or any investments I've made so far.
That is so inspiring and so beautiful to see. I really appreciate you sharing your story, everything that you've gone through as a business owner, as well as a producer, and your valuable advice. I was taking notes. I was like, listen up, y'all. This is a masterclass. I love what you said about the connector. I never even thought of that, but it's so true. Some of the top producers are just natural connectors. You can't even stop them from making connections for people.
No, it's absolutely natural.
Yeah. And that's why this career is so much fun. And it really is. You get that high, you're like, oh, I made a connection, and they connected, and that person gave that person, a phone call, and then now they're best friends. I love that. And now we get paid on top of that. So I love how,
and sometimes, sometimes you get paid for it, and sometimes you don't. And like, that's okay too, that's the cool part, is that you do just kind of get paid to introduce people and bring circles together, and then it becomes your circle. And so it's pretty magical. You break it down.
Well, thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Congrats on all of your business success.